Welcome to the UIUC Talkshow. In this episode, we get the chance to sit down and talk to our close friend Jolim about the meaning of life, the existence of the afterlife, his journey with religion, making mistakes, and the action model for living a successful life. This is a very unconventional episode because a lot of the things that we talk about are things that most of us do not think of on a daily basis, but something that he battles with constantly. Jolim is an unconventional thinker and sees the world differently than most of us, which is why we enjoyed this conversation a lot. It goes without saying that the conversation was a long one as we dived into a lot of topics. So we are releasing this conversation in two parts, with the second extended version being released on the Clips channel, whose link you can find in the description. So without any further ado, let's dive in to understanding the meaning of life with Mr. Jolim.
What do you think about at night when you're alone?
Recently, I've been trying to get into the habit of thinking about just reflecting on the day. Like I did that before, but I want to get more intentional about it and see what were some things that I could have done better maybe, or what's something that I can do more. Did I spend my time the way that I wanted to? When a new day starts tomorrow, what are some of the things that I would like to do? Are there any other things that I'm forgetting that I need to do? Something like that. What have you been thinking about?
Whatever comes to mind, really, but a lot of times it's just how to overcome laziness, different things like sadness or anxiety, how to choose goals, like lifetime goals, why people act, like what causes people to act fundamentally. Things like that. I don't know. I try to create some sort of model to describe that. Some sort of, I don't know. It's just whatever comes to mind, really. But yeah.
So what's the model? I guess like if you had to describe it in one sentence to give a preview.
Which one?
The model you've been making.
Oh, the most recent one over winter break, I was working on something called interactive action model. It sprouts from this idea that I want to achieve certain things. I want to reach certain states, right? I think everyone has in mind at least some sort of state that they want to reach, whether it's X amount of money or X skills or whatever it is. And I was trying to think of the optimal way to get to a certain state. So it started with this idea I had of, I didn't know it at the time, but what I was thinking of was kind of like a state diagram. I was back in last fall. I think last time we met in a circle, I talked about it a bit. It was this, you have this tree, and each node represents the state that you're in. The root node represents the state that you're at from the start, like right now. And your life can branch off like this tree into many different possible states, right? And this tree doesn't have an infinite number of nodes because your life, I guess it's depending on the way you think about it, but the way I thought of it is our life can branch off into a finite number of states. And the way you partition your life into different states is really up to you. But usually people think of it as a finite way, like one state that, like you have a certain state of when you're in high school, for example, and then when you're in college. Like people don't really think of it like a continuous interval of states, kind of. But anyway, I was trying to think of how to. So say you're at like some root node, you're at your starting point, and you want to get to some spot in the future, right? And how do you navigate through that? How do I represent someone's path through states? I mean, I came with the conclusion that you really only need to maximize two variables. One is like, okay, so in like the infinite limit, if you have perfect knowledge, right, you know about every single node, and you know about every single little connection, and you know exactly, mentally, you know exactly what you need to do to get to where you want to be. Second thing is, if you have perfect will, then you can go along each step, go level by level, from level 0 to 1 to 2. You can do that without lacking willpower. Like, you can do it perfectly. So if you have those two things, you can go step by step flawlessly, and you have perfect knowledge of all these different states. Then you can get to whatever state that you want to be in, right? And so it started with that idea. I mean, it's now I think about it, it's kind of obvious. Like, to get to where you need to go, you need to gain knowledge and work hard, right? It's kind of obvious.
So those were your two variables that
Yes.
you included.
Yes.
So work hard, or what was the variable name?
I mean, I just called it like one variable is just to maximize knowledge, and the other one is to maximize effort, really.
Okay.
And with the two, you can, in the infinite limit, it works, right? You know that with perfect knowledge and perfect effort, you can get anywhere you want to be, right? But it's really hard to show that knowledge and effort are proportional to you being able to get where you want to be. Like, you know, if you have both perfectly, you can, but just because of that, it doesn't mean that the more knowledge and effort the more finite knowledge and effort that you put into, the closer you are to the state that you want to be in. That's not necessarily the case. But I was trying to like justify that in some way, but I couldn't. So basically, I said, I tried to devise a method to attack this knowledge component in a structured way. So how do we gain knowledge effectively to reach the states that we want to reach? So I broke this down into two things: decision making and efficiency. So the first category, decision making, can be broken down further into two more categories, which is like higher level decision making, like what am I going to do? Like what college am I going to go to? What am I going to study? What am I going to major in? What project am I going to take on? Like, what events am I going to go to? Who am I going to meet? Things like that. Like, higher level decisions is one part of that decision making category. The other is now that you've had these higher level decisions, like I'm going to go along this career path or whatever, you select certain tasks. So that's the decision making component. The other component is efficiency, right? So it's this idea that you want to not just work hard but work smart, right? And this incorporates some sort of, like, you need some sort of knowledge to be able to work hard. Like how some sort of knowledge to be able to work smart. Like it's useful to be able to know how to organize tasks effectively so that you complete them efficiently. It's also useful to know, like, given a specific task, right, how do I execute that efficiently? So say I have to read 20 pages of a biology textbook, right? One way people take notes is usually by, just jotting down bullet points, things like that. But I was doing some research. It seems like one way to learn more efficiently is to map these concepts on some graph, use arrows to draw connections between concepts, and it's just easier for your mind to soak in ideas when it's not just in this linear, like, bullet point fashion. And that's one example of how to use your knowledge to gain knowledge of how to do things more efficiently. Those are the 4 different things, right? So to recap, like, going back to the tree, you need to try to increase two variables, knowledge and effort. Knowledge can be broken down into decision making and efficiency. Decision making involves higher level decisions and lower level like decisions regarding tasks, and the efficiency is the kind of the way you organize tasks once you've chosen them, and given a task, how do you act efficiently? As for effort, I didn't really go much into that, like how to improve willpower and improve the way you exert, like how much effort you can exert in a particular direction. I think that might come down to like trying to develop habits, because when you develop a habit, it's much easier for you to execute that task, even if initially it's very difficult. And so habits, and also just general maintenance like exercise, sleep well. That just, you know, when you're low on sleep, you can't really focus well, and it's hard to maintain willpower. So
Tell me more about your story. So you are here, you were born and now you're here. What happened in between? Because I think it's important to get some context on as to how your mind ended up being the way it is. Because not every mind can come up with this model and think this deeply about things. So what's the background?
So I guess I grew up in a pretty religious family, Christian family. So my mom and dad took me to church ever since I was little. And I took it quite seriously until I was about maybe 16 or 17. I was like trying to read the Bible regularly. You know, it's a hard habit to maintain, but I tried a bit at least. I prayed regularly, went to church. I really tried to live as a Christian, and what that meant to me was trying to surrender my life to God, to serve Him, and kind of put other things as secondary, and try to, you know, pray to Him, draw strength from Him. So basically, you know, a lot of my childhood, like up until like sophomore year of high school, involved, you know, thinking about these deeper metaphysical ideas, right? Like God, like his relationship to humans, how we should act. And I think that's, if you want an answer to like why I guess think in this way, I guess it started from reading the Bible and thinking about it and talking to other people about it. And I guess my family's also, my parents are pretty analytical. They talk about deeper ideas as well, and they like to draw patterns. And instead of simply just talking about events and just simply stating the facts, they like to draw patterns and things like that. And so I guess it kind of came on to me. Okay, so I had this dream when I was in 7th grade, right? I had this dream of becoming this great biologist or something, right? I wanted to make a great impact in synthetic biology or genetic engineering or something. And, you know, I tried to go along this path as best as I could. Took the AP courses, tried to, you know, get work with professors in their labs, and apply to biology programs and such. I think it was both like motivated by a desire to help people, but also like this desire to do something meaningful, right? Just feel like I've done something meaningful and made some sort of impact. But then, you know, around middle of high school, like sophomore, junior year, I started to think more critically about why I believe in the Christian God and whether or not I should follow Him. And during that phase, I also felt kind of disconnected from God. Like, I'll pray to Him, given my struggles, and it seemed like God was just not answering, or just I just felt like I was talking to the wall. And so slowly I moved away from the faith. I tried to do some research into philosophical arguments for or against God's existence, look into some physics around that. But it was really interesting at first to see that there was so much actually intellectual work on the idea of God's existence. It's not just some people take the problem of God's existence quite seriously and try to explain it in a rational way, and it was refreshing to see that. But I became a bit discouraged after maybe like a couple months of intense research that, no matter how much I research on this topic, there's always some sort of counter argument that someone can come up with or I can think of. And it's just almost like this never-ending process where I can never really be sure if God is real or not. And this kind of firm foundation I had in my life with God, me firmly believing God exists and it guiding my thoughts and actions, it sort of crumbled. It was never the same once I started, once like middle of high school. And so I was just super confused and kind of lost as to the meaning of it all. And I kind of lost sight of my goal of trying to, become this biologist. And so, so I guess like amidst this confusion of, who I am, how do I view the universe that was caused by, losing my faith, led me into it made me susceptible to this like sort of video game addiction that started in like junior year of high school, where I would play like, maybe it was also COVID as well, but so it was about that time. So I would play like 5 hours a day or so. Like I was still able to keep up with my schoolwork at that point. But yeah, I just found myself in this state where I couldn't really pull myself out of video games. It was it was just so weird, like observing myself. I know, like in my mind I can process through and say like, okay, this is clearly not a good action. I should probably, work more on my schoolwork or maybe read some philosophy, try to actively, address these concerns I have. But I ended up just escaping into video games and stuff, and that's just my impulse just kept drawing me to that. And so actually a lot of these models were born from me being so like distraught about my situation where I can't control myself, and trying to come up with some model to describe that and to provide a way forward. Like how do I understand my action? How do I modify it? Things like that. And I think what I should have done was read more psychology. I guess there's a lot of professionals that have done work in this, right? And so could have done that, but I guess I just found it more natural. I found it more fun to just think of my own ways, to fix that. And so that's kind of, it's in answer to your question, it's really the Christian background and the ideas it exposes you to, my parents and their analytical way of talking about things, and just a desire to understand impulses and action and how to change them. And yeah, I just think it's fun sometimes. Some of these things that I create are not the most like coherent, or they don't have much of an explanatory scope, or they're born from like limited data. But I don't know, I think it's kind of enjoyable to do it now. So
You think with enough knowledge you can have the answer to everything?
what do you mean by answer to everything?
So you mentioned that if you had only read more books or more philosophy, you would have a better understanding of certain things. Let's say you could read all the philosophy books in the world.
No, I don't think so. I would have better understanding, yeah, but I wouldn't be able to understand everything, right? I feel like, humans. So I think it's like one of two things, or maybe both. But either like you have like all of knowledge as this universe of data, and our human minds, we're just biological organisms, and our human minds are only, have certain limits, and we can only perceive a strict subset of this universe, or it's something like color blindness, like where, in a sense, you can see everything that people with normal vision can see, but you're seeing it through a different lens, and you're missing everything that you do see is missing some sort of data. So, no, I don't think. No matter how many philosophy books I read, no matter how many years pass, I guess I'll never know everything, but I think it's useful to keep on trying and learn as much as I can. It's also not just for the sake of getting an answer, but just for the sake of, because it's interesting and it satisfies a curiosity. So,
how do you perceive the notion of like a prophet then, like someone who everyone believes to be someone who's all knowledgeable? Because they were humans too at the end of the day, right?
Which in a way is kind of the anti-thesis of what you're saying, in some way, because I guess like the prophet in that sense would be like the person with, all knowledgeable, all capable. So like it would fit your two variables of, it's capable of doing anything, it's capable of working hard, and also he knows how to do it, and knows everything.
So your question is, can a prophet know everything, or?
So you mentioned that like you can read all the books that you have in the world, but still not have enough knowledge to know the answer to everything, right? But there are certain beings that society as a whole can agree upon and say, or like looks up to, or has faith in, certain prophets that we believe to be all knowledgeable. You're personally feeling that regardless of how many books you read, you will never become the all knowledgeable.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But you're also aware, or at least have faith in the existence of someone who is all knowledgeable.
No, I don't. Currently, I don't. But I think it's possible that those people can exist, but currently I don't. I'm not sure someone like that exists. So.
How would you even define the all knowledgeable? Because then the matter of ethics or absolute truth comes in.
I'm not sure how to answer that. Define the all knowledgeable. So basically, like, you're asking to define kind of God, basically, like some being that has perfect knowledge of everything. Yeah, I'm not sure.
If you had to imagine such a being existing, how would you imagine it?
How would you imagine it? So you give me something to think. If you had to guess, is it one person? Is it multiple persons? Is it where are they living, or where's he living?
Where's who living?
This person you're mentioning, is it like 10,000 feet above the ground, or?
I don't know. I think it's a bad question to begin with, because we often forget that knowledge is being created all the time. like, I don't think there's a set limit or set definition of knowledge. Like, if you go back maybe 1,000 years, what might have been considered knowledgeable would be very different than what is considered knowledgeable today.
I mean, it's knowledge created or invented.
That's what I'm saying. That's
Also,
what I'm.
if it's created, then you make the point that the all knowledgeable will already know everything because at the limit, everything will be found. And then he's already, so like we're here, he's there. And like we're just catching up to him, which we'll never because it's infinity. But checkmate.
No, that is what I'm trying to say. Which is why it's a bad question.
I mean, this model was what I meant by all knowledgeable is like you have perfect knowledge of, you know, all the states that you could be in as a person. It doesn't necessarily mean you're like God that knows everything in the whole universe, right? It's just you know enough to know where your life is going to lead at, you know, any possible direction.
Yeah. We're not criticizing that the model is mostly about, because you mentioned religion and then he was mentioning about the all knowledgeable like being.
Yeah, I was just curious to see, like, because you started, as you mentioned, believing in God, and then you started thinking more deeply about it. So I was curious if in that period of time how did you reconcile with that emotion of first believing in someone so deeply and then coming to terms where you might not believe in the existence of someone like that?
I don't really understand your question still.
So yeah, his English is not his first language, mine neither. But the question, if I understand it correctly, is that you believe in God, now you don't.
Yes.
How does that make you feel?
No, okay, so I'm agnostic, so
Well, agnostic.
not really
but
sure. So
you were
I don't
religious, now you're
hold on to the
agnostic.
belief as
How does that make you
secure.
feel?
How does it make me feel?
How does it make you see the world differently? If anything?
Okay.
And how did you get to that point of first believing in something so deeply and then starting to question it?
Okay. So to answer that question, so how do I believe something so strongly and then start to question it? I guess it's just so from childhood, just going to church, reading the Bible, I took all these facts in like axiomatically, like by
Right.
assumption, right? Never really questioned if they could be derived from some more believable assumptions or something. And I guess just the act of going to school and taking science classes and all that just made me question these assumptions that we made more. And so that facilitated the transition a bit. Another thing that facilitated the transition to agnostic was just in the Bible it says, you know, that Christians are supposedly supposed to feel this peace and knowing that they're with God, and you know, and this sort of Christianity seemed to have a lot more of this emotional component that I really felt like I did not have. Like I did not feel like there was someone trying to guide me and help me. I did not feel like I was surrendered to some being. I didn't feel like any of this peace, and I was upset. And I think that frustration and anger facilitate that transition a bit. So, yeah. I guess also just being around other people that don't really believe, that obviously has an effect. Okay, so to answer your question, which was how does it make me feel like once I've made this transition, right? Is that what it was?
That's
Okay.
right,
Yeah.
I felt like as a Christian, I was constantly trying to live up to these certain impossible standards, live up to try to become, you know, to act like Jesus, to surrender your life in a similar fashion, you know, put away a lot of these, you know, desires and pleasures of the world and put God first. And it was kind of stressful to always try to live up to that. And so in a way, it's a relief. I guess maybe if I had focused on Christianity, like focused on the another big idea in the Bible is although we are, you know, so far separated from God and we can never really meet his standards, right? Like God's grace allows us to still, you know, be in his presence and be his children. And I guess I never really focused much on what that grace was and how it felt. And so maybe that had a impact on the way I always felt so stressed out about following these standards. Well,
No, that's a interesting point. So, are you familiar with like mimetic theory by any chance?
no.
Well, it doesn't matter. But basically,
Oh,
right-
is this the imitation?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
A
So,
little
like-
bit. Yeah,
yeah,
that's
so
some of the stuff you said.
He became deeply Christian, and a lot of his models, to put it that way, is that he believed that, you know, humans are deeply mimetic, and that we need these forces to live our lives, and that no matter whether you believe in God or not, like you're always worshiping something, you know, to quote David Foster Wallace. But like you're always worshiping something, whether your work, your life, God, money, whatever. So Rene Girard, which is the guy of the mimetic theory thing, he basically said that that, you know, like you should mimic that which doesn't mimic others, which in a way it's Christ in a sense, and that's why he became deeply Christian, because he believes that, you know, like of course you're never gonna get there because you're not supposed to get there. That's just like the limit. Like that's what you should strive for, but you're never gonna get there because you can't. It's infinity, in a way. But it's a model which you can aspire to. So it's almost, you know, like we're deeply mimetic and we do things because of other people. Like we learn that way. We're deeply imitate, you know, like we imitate others for many things. And he said, you know, mimic like the person or the thing that doesn't mimic other people, which is, you know, according to what he believed was Christ. Doesn't imitate anyone.
How did he come to that conclusion that we should imitate that which doesn't imitate or cannot be imitated?
I haven't studied super deeply to answer that question as like, okay, like he did this X, Y, and Z, so I couldn't be able to tell you. But just something that he realized by reading a lot of it's kind of funny how I realized he read a lot of like fiction stories from like, it's not technically, I forgot the name, but like literature pretty much, and that's how he realized it, these patterns across like different histories and everything else. But anyway, yeah, of course. I mean, of course, you're never going to be able to. But you know, like one interesting aspect to look at it is that, like, do you wish you never questioned, or like, do you wish you still believed?
I don't wish I still believe. If I feel like I'm justified and I've done the research and I can come to the conclusion based on my research that God is real and these things in the Bible are true, then you know, I think I should believe. It's for your question of whether or not. So I'm glad that I'm questioning these things. I think it's important. And that comes to another idea that I've thought about. So have you heard of Pascal's wager? Pascal's wager kind of just assumes that either there is a Christian God or there isn't a Christian God, right? And doesn't really pull in ideas of other gods. And at least to my knowledge, And so it's this, you can choose to believe in God or you choose to not believe in God. In either scenario, there's two outcomes, right? Either God exists or God does not exist. And so if you believe in God, right? If God exists, you go to heaven. If God does not exist, I guess you forfeited finite pleasures, like pleasures in a finite life. So, you're trying very hard to follow God's laws. You're trying to live according to what He says is good, and so you naturally do give up a lot of these human, earthly pleasures that we would be able to take part in otherwise. So, in a sense, your life on Earth may be less enjoyable or whatever. But if you choose not to believe in God, right, and God exists, you go to hell. If God doesn't exist, then nice. I guess you had fun in your finite life. But when you, so if you take the expected value of these outcomes, right, so say like, whatever the probability of God is, the probability of God existing is, it might be very, very small, but it's not zero, right? So as long as it's non-zero, so it's positive, right, the expected value for choosing to believe in God is greater. Because like going to heaven has infinite value, going to hell has negative infinite value. It's clearly the better choice to believe in God. It'd be easier if I drew it out. Okay.
Go for it.
I think people can agree that there's a non-zero chance of eternal life or of us being in an afterlife when we die, right? And although many people think that chance is quite small, I still believe it's useful to focus on trying to determine, where people are going after death, because the values associated with an afterlife are so much greater than the values associated with, enjoying or this finite life we have. Basically, what this diagram shows is that afterlife outcome much more heavily influences the value of your life than what you do in your finite life on Earth, right? And so I think it's important to try to find out answers to these questions. Try to get as close as we can, even though we might not know it perfectly. Okay, so to give an analogy, right, to make this more concrete, say you're going to live for another 50 years or so, right? Would you rather, act in such a way to have the best possible year next year, 2024, or would you rather act in such a way to ensure you have the best possible 49 years afterwards, right? So I think it's a clear choice to try to consider this long interval of time after death, right? Even though it may be, people might think it's unlikely that some sort of afterlife exists, right? Because the probability is non-zero, and the value associated with such an afterlife is extremely, extremely high. It's worth looking into. So that's basically all to answer your question. That no, I'm happy that I'm questioning these things. I mean, I think it's good that I'm questioning these things, and I would rather not be ignorant of it.
Have there been some other things that you have come to question, or you're questioning right now, maybe? Like one example I can give you is, as students, a lot of us question our major, for example. There are these deep-rooted societal beliefs or things that we're just expected to do, but it's only when you start thinking about it, and when you're in that position, you start to question it. So have there been other things that you've come to question?
I guess I have that same thing, what should I ultimately be going after, and how to do that, right? Like, I guess in terms of this question, we're trying to figure out these philosophical questions at a larger scale, and also to answer the specific question, is there an afterlife? You can attack it from so many different angles, right? You can study religion, math, philosophy, history. You could take a experiential approach and I guess travel the world and try to live like people that actively practice these religions. You could try to I guess go into AI, try to develop systems that can maybe assist us in analyzing documents and forming conclusions. So currently, yeah, so it's yeah, so I guess I'm just debating on which of those paths I should go on. And for career reasons also, just I think I've been going more towards like CS. So I guess, yeah, that's been on my mind, I guess, recently. Career options, which field to go in.
Have you been able to come up with a goal?
I mean, I guess I've talked to you about this a bit. Like, ultimately, it would be nice if, I had a lot of money, or I could get donations and somehow to create some sort of organization that pools experts from many different fields, from math, philosophy, physics, psychology, understanding how architecture of belief, how people reason through things. And create this group of people that are trying to answer these questions. I guess that could be a goal.
Have you thought about starting it right now with students?
No, I don't feel like I know enough. Not even close.
But like wouldn't this be the perfect opportunity for that, if you think about it? 'Cause you're at a campus where you have these exact people all around you.
I just think my efforts would go further if I was more qualified. Maybe more people would join, and I would be able to make better decisions if have more knowledge of philosophy and stuff. Because I wish I had read more, right? But I've read a little bit, but as I said, a lot of time has been spent on video games, and so
But
I would first want to read and learn a lot more before I do this.
But that'll be the point of the group, though, right? Like you get to interact with these people who are more knowledgeable than you about these subjects, and you get to learn from them. So let's say you bring in the aspect of, let's say, computer science or more analytical thinking, while someone else can bring in a more philosophical thinking to this. Someone can bring in an engineering perspective to all of this. And you have this group of people who can talk about religion or maybe an NFL game, and just like you can have all these different perspectives from all sides. And engineering might focus more on, let's say, the physics of how everything is working. A person from maybe media might be focusing on the camera work that goes behind making a game like this. Someone who's a fashion student might think about all the jerseys that are being made, the fabric that might have been used. Some might think about the ethics or the implications of such big games, right? So like that, just as an example of the kind of things you can just learn if you have a group of people who all come from different backgrounds. And I don't think anyone needs to have that broad range of knowledge about all subjects, as long as they can bring something to the table. And I think that's where the most effective learning happens. Like, we were not qualified to start this talk show. Like, if we would have waited to read books, watch like 1,000 YouTube channels who do something like this, we would have never started this. We didn't know most of the people that have been on the show, for example. But as a consequence, we now know more about what they do because we had a chance to interact with them.
I think I could make progress in either way, right? Like, I could either studying on my own or
Right.
trying to start this immediately, I could make progress, but it's just a matter of which one is the best choice right now. And I don't know. I guess you make a good case, but I currently believe that it's just more efficient to gather a lot of information now, like knowledge of my own first.
What do you think is an effective learning strategy for you personally? Do you learn better when you read or you watch or you talk?
Probably when I read, because I have time to just slowly try to wrap my mind around different ideas. I can always go back to something I read a couple minutes ago. So reading and I guess writing things or practice questions, things like that. Yeah.
What's a book you're reading right now?
So right now it's just probably just math textbooks for class. Outside of that, the man who waits.
The
What's
Man
that?
Who Knew Infinity?
Yeah, the man who knew infinity. Yeah. So
Ramanujan.
yeah, interesting story. Have you? I know you've read it, but have you read that as well?
No, I have the book. I
Yeah.
lent it to him, but I still need to read it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got it from Granger one day. They were giving out
And
some
he
books.
never put it back.
No, they were giving out books.
Oh,
I
yeah.
didn't pick it up from the shelf and just keep it.
Yeah, it's a good find. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good find. What problem do you want to solve?
Okay, so this is kind of what we were talking about previously, but with it's sort of this contrast between setting goals and wanting certain. I don't know if this is exactly what we're talking about. Okay, but setting goals and wanting to achieve certain outcomes versus just being in like a childlike state of like being lost in curiosity and passion.
Okay.
And how to reconcile the two and how one can maybe assist the other and vice versa. What are people really trying to get at, right? Is it specific like affect, like certain like feeling when they're doing a certain activity? Like, so do they do everything, like get a job, go to school, all that, just so that they can experience certain moments in life that are filled with positive feeling, like, you know, like going on vacation, hang out with people, like it's these feelings that people search for. Is it that? Is it, you know, reaching a certain state, like accomplishing X, Y, Z, or like making X amount of money or getting X skill or whatever? Is it a state that people are going for? Kind of like a description of themselves that they're trying to make true? Or is it specific feeling while experiencing something? And I don't know, I feel like both of these ideas are just approximations of what people really want. Like I feel like what people really want is like some unknown thing in the subconscious, and then they try to get at it from these different angles. Like one is like trying to set goals to attain certain states for themselves, and then another is like trying to do certain activities to for fun or whatever. Like and then like within these categories you have like actions that are like targeting that, and it's like it's all for some like fundamental thing that humans want that's like undescribable.
You think there's a common center?
Yeah, also that's another question, like is there a common center? Is there one thing, right? But I don't know. And I was just trying to explore these two different competing
Go for it.
these two different competing ideas, which is like setting goals to reach certain states or simply just acting to enjoy different things. Okay, so when it comes to like doing, you know, the learning or like trying to explore ideas or studying and stuff like that, you could take these two approaches, right? Like you could try to say, oh, my goal is to get a certain grade and to graduate from a certain school and stuff, and so you fill your day with actions aimed at that. So the value in what you're doing is okay. So what you're doing has value insofar as it helps you reach that end goal, right? like getting a better grade or whatever. So that's one mode of thinking that some people are in when studying or something. Another mode is like just lost in pleasure with thinking about these ideas, like just letting the passion and curiosity run, kind of like I think Ramanujan was probably like. It's like I was thinking earlier today that like these things can kind of complement each other, right? So if you just simply let the passion and curiosity run, you just study and do whatever you feel like doing, and you don't really worry about these outcomes in the real world, like, you know, about getting a job and so forth. Ultimately, you're going to run up against these outcomes in the real world, and you're not going to be able to secure this activity that you like doing so much. So, for example, like if you just like reading philosophy or psychology all the time, and you like thinking about these things, say like someone just that's all they do because they enjoy that so much, right? And they don't really worry about end states, about, you know, how they're gonna make money like a year from now or something. At some point, the real world's gonna catch up to them. Maybe their parents want them to move out or whatever, and they're not gonna be able to pursue these ideas anymore because they have to get a job or whatever. And so in a certain way, you need this goal setting, outcome oriented framework to help you with passion. It complements passion. So to secure the number of times that you can spend immersed in this work that you like to do, you have to in a way plan and execute and try to reach certain outcomes so that you can continue to do that in the future. Like someone that's very interested in like psychology or philosophy could try to get a PhD and try to secure a professorship, and that sort of outcome-centered plan would allow them to continue to do that work throughout their life, as opposed to if they hadn't planned all that and then they find themselves unable to continue that work. On the flip side, this constantly pursuing outcomes leads to three different things. So it's like if you're constantly pursuing a certain goal and that's really all you care about and you're never really lost in passion or curiosity in doing your work, it seems that you're affected by three things. So like one is this like mirage thing where you always feel like you're in the middle of the race, right? You're working really hard towards a certain goal, a certain like short-term goal, and then you reach it or you don't reach it, and then you set another goal, and then you reach it or you don't reach it, set another goal. So it always seems like you're chasing a moving target, you're chasing after a mirage, and you're always in the middle of the race. And that's very tiring because it seems like you're never really accomplishing anything, because when you do accomplish it, it's counted as like, it's like not good enough. I gotta set another one. So this is one danger of constantly being your mind is, if your mind is constantly in this goal setting framework, that's what happens, I think. Another is just stress, because when you have an outcome imagined, right, you in a way like intensely desire after that, and proportional to that intense desire is this kind of fear of not getting that certain outcome. And that fear is, when it happens enough, it's kind of like leads to stress, or it is stress. And then lastly, like this goal setting framework, if you're constantly doing it all the time, is it leaves you often in a state where you feel like you constantly fall short. Okay, I guess this is, I'm mainly talking about myself when I'm talking about these effects. But so like you set a certain goal, and it's a goal, right? It's an ideal basically by definition. And oftentimes you haven't predicted certain things. Things come up, or your willpower is a bit short or whatever, and you fall short of this goal, right? So being constantly goal oriented makes it so that it's hard to collect satisfaction along the way. It's either like when you, okay, when I see that like I haven't reached a certain standard, this certain goal that I was setting out to do, right? It just I just don't feel satisfied. And so I don't know if any of that made sense, but
Do you believe in coincidences?
Or serendipity is another word.
so you're asking like, do I believe they're purely chance or they have some sort of meaning attached to it? Like, do I believe in them? Like, I'm not sure what you mean by that.
Like, do you think there's, an easy way to ask the question would be, do you think there's a reason why anything and everything happens? Or do you think there's, I guess,
There can be probably some things that are just random with absolutely nothing causing that, but it just happened to be a pure coincidence. So do you believe in coincidences happening, or do you think there's a reason or meaning behind everything that happens?
I'm not sure. I don't know. It kind of goes to how we define meaning and how we determine if something is this happened because of this reason, or this happened for some greater purpose, or this happened because it was caused by something else, and that's why it's meaningful. Currently, I just operate under the assumption that there are just pure coincidences, and not everything has some sort of meaning tied to it, or was caused by God or something. What about you guys?
There are certain times where it makes you question, like when you look back, if it was even a coincidence, because it feels so absurd, or so it feels like this would have never happened, but it did somehow, and it leads to certain things. For example, it's like those instances where you truly think whether. So I have a mixed reaction to this. It makes me wonder whether if there's a set path for everything to just happen, right? Like if this leads on to the question of free will in a certain way, or a deterministic universe, is if there are no pure coincidences, it means that certain things are just supposed to happen, right? And that's where my mind gets to, like, if coincidences do not exist, it means that, or it points towards a more deterministic universe. It means that everything that I'm doing right now is the way that I'm supposed to. And it might also like lead to a more, I don't know, not a toxic mentality, but more of a weird mentality of where you might become more lenient, and you might just accept your life as it is because you think you're on a self-driving car, basically. You feel like your car is an autopilot. So that's something that, I don't know. I personally do not look up to that notion of being in an autopilot car. Like, it may or may not be true. I do not know, but I do not want to get into the mentality of thinking that anything that I do right now is not worth it because certain things are just supposed to happen. I like believing that there are certain things in my life that I have in control, and there are certain things that I can influence, that I have a hold of the steering wheel in some way. Because if you just accept the fact that some things are just supposed to happen, let's say you like fail in class, or like you get kicked out of college, if you had the notion of thinking just, okay, this was just supposed to happen, and you just start accepting it, you become a lot more lenient in your life, and maybe you lose meaning behind a lot of the things that you believed in.
Yeah. I guess it'd be that attitude that we're just in this self-driving car is it could be both good and bad in different circumstances, I guess. Like if you're very worried or stressed out about different things, or things are very different. Yeah, if you're really worried or stressed out about different things, you don't know, which path to go down, and you think certain paths could lead to certain bad events or whatever. I think it could be calming to know that in the end, it's something's determined and it's just gonna happen no matter what. I guess yeah, in a way, it counteracts like our this natural drive to want to have an effect on the world, to have
Right.
our will have some sort of effect. Yeah.
What do you think?
What?
I think that. I mean, usually this question seems pretty easy to me. I mean, I think. I think everything is meant to be, but it doesn't mean we don't. The world is deterministic. It just means that it's a nuance that we don't understand yet. That's it.
It's a knowledge that has not been invented yet.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's basically. I mean, like that's. I think there's a big. I mean, there's a big thing about the world that we don't get yet. It's like we have this opposing notion about everything. Yeah, like I don't know, like one of the best ideas I've ever or things I've learned in my life is that if you want to get something, or if you should work hard to get it, but also be completely indifferent, and that's the best way to get it. Like the most optimal way to get it. Not to work hard, do not care, but just really care about it, but also be completely indifferent. So that nuance of thoughts or behavior or I don't know, mathematics or physics, we don't really see it yet. I mean, in quantum, we kind of have this thing, but it's not quite there yet. So once we figure that out, I think we'll figure out everything. I mean, that's basically what like a lot of Eastern philosophy is about, like Hinduism and I mean the Tao Te Ching and like sort of Buddhism and even every religion. I mean, it's I don't know, a Bible quote or something I can remember. I don't know.
Like yin and yang, like
Yeah,
That complements to everything.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but even in like the Bible too, like if you want to be exalted, be humble. If you want to be humble, like exalt yourself or whatever. Forgot the right term, but like we see these notions everywhere, and we just seem to not. We still seem to have to work hard, or like and then some people are just completely indifferent about everything. Which I mean, in a way, that's why maybe having the lack of nuance is what causes a lot of things today, because we're like extreme in things. That's what I think. It's both.
It's a superposition.
Yeah. Coldplay should release a song named Superposition. Do you like Coldplay?
I like some of the songs, yeah.
Which ones?
Viva La Vida. How do I pronounce it?
Yeah,
Viva.
That's too basic.
Is that?
That's like
Okay.
Popular. That's too
It's
popular.
because it's the Minecraft parody. That's why.
Oh my god, yeah.
the what?
I hate it when people know Viva La Vida because of the Minecraft parody.
I don't know what that is.
Someone made a song, like a parody of like a Minecraft version of Viva La Vida.
Yeah.
Like same tune and everything, just like Minecraft lyrics.
Interesting.
So
You should watch it.
whenever I
I'll
play
send
it,
to you.
there's at least someone who starts singing the Minecraft lyrics to the song. Like,
Yeah, he's quite extreme about Coldplay. Like he's like
the yin.
those fans that will like hurt you if you say
No,
something wrong
okay.
about it. But
What do you listen to?
I don't really listen to any genre or artist particularly. It's just random songs that I like.
all right.
What do you do to de-stress? Or just relax your mind?
Just like, just try to like close my eyes or something and just breathe. Try not to think about different things, or listen to lo-fi. That's pretty calming. Go for a run. That's pretty helpful.
2 a.m. runs.
Yeah, sometimes. In the past, it's been video games, shows, and stuff. But I think that's, in a way, it's like unhealthy. You know? It doesn't really let your mind rest. It's another form of stimulation and thinking. So.
But this is where where you're making yourself more vulnerable, because whatever you deny submits you.
Sorry?
Whatever you deny submits you.
I didn't get that.
So you're denying this thing, like, oh, TV shows are bad or video games are bad. You're denying, and then like now you're like, so you cannot deny because
Now you're chained to it in some way.
No, I didn't get the phrase you said. Whatever you're denying.
I think it was Freud. I think it was Freud.
Oh, submits you. Okay.
Submits you, yeah.
Whatever you deny submits you. That's a good quote. That's a good quote. Almost like the purple elephant and like idea where like it's like the thing is like try not to think of a purple elephant, right? And the more you try, the more you think of it. So in a way, I guess it's kind of like that.
When was the last time you deeply cried about something? Do you cry often?
No.
That's not like a no. That's more like a yes. like a yes ringtone. No, yeah.
No. Okay, the answer is no.
So you've never cried in your life?
Yeah, of course I have. But last time, I don't know, almost maybe like a couple months ago or something.
Right.
Yeah. I don't want to get into it though.
Okay.
What about you?
What? I'm doing well, thank you.
When was the last time you deeply
What
cried?
you deny submits you.
I don't remember, actually. I don't know. I mean, crying's good, though. In many
You don't
ways.
remember. Nice. Avoiding
No, I don't.
avoiding your answer.
I don't know. I mean, in a way, it's good because kids cry a lot. They're very light. You grow up, you don't cry as often. You're heavy, or gravity.
Are you heavy right now?
I don't think so, but I feel like kids are lighter in many ways.
In weight, sure, but
No, but in spirit.
Yeah.
Are you scared of going to hell? Or are you scared of dying?
Yes.
Do you ever ponder about that question of what happens after that?
Yeah, I do.
How does that affect what you do now, day to day?
In a way, it provides this background fear that it's very hard to get rid of. Almost like in everything I do, I don't want it to lead me down a path where I don't explore this question. I want things that I do to help me towards answering that question and getting closer to it. And so, like in a way, I'm always afraid, I guess, and worried about this. And I've tried to take away this worry, but it's very difficult. It's very ingrained in my mind, this fear.
Whatever you deny submits you. The more you try, the less it will go away. If you could put up a billboard on Green Street, what would you say? Something that everyone in campus would see it. What would you want them to know?
Of this expected value equation.
So you would tell them to believe in God.
I'll tell them that it's important to consider your state of being in the afterlife. Most people just try to lead a good life here on Earth and don't even think about the afterlife at all, or maybe because they think it's non-zero probability that non-zero chance that an afterlife exists, or it's like it's non-zero and negligible, and so they just don't really worry about it. But in the end, the value associated with afterlife, whether or not it's positive or negative, is so great that even when it's multiplied by that small probability, it affects the expected value equation. But then you could say, like, is expected value a good way to model this? And that's also a big question. Maybe not.
Seems good enough for now. But something that you're going to have to figure out.
Yeah. But do you guys understand what I mean by that? Like, convey with this expected value equation?
Yeah, like no matter what path you go to, you still have the value of the leaving always shows up everywhere. Meaning that, like, no matter that, like, the best option is to believe. Done.
Like if your goal was to lead a better afterlife, probability says believe.
That's not exactly what I was saying. Because saying, like, even if your goal isn't currently to try to lead a good afterlife, your goal is to try to lead a good life, right?
Right.
But there's a chance that it extends beyond this, I don't know, 8 or so years we have. And the enormous time that the afterlife takes up means that it's something that it's paired with enormous value, right?
We'll come back to this one. What has happened to your friend Alex?
What has happened?
What have you noticed?
It's much more confident, approaching people, talking to different people, doing things that, just like he doesn't really worry so much about what people think anymore, I guess, or that's what it seems.
You said that was the fastest. What do you say?
Fastest I've ever seen someone change.
Wow.
Have you wondered what might have brought upon that change? Like, not what factor made him change, but what he changed within himself. What he did that led to
just putting himself in uncomfortable positions. That sounds so weird. In uncomfortable situations, and put himself in uncomfortable situations to kind of stretch that
notion of what's normal, right?
Yeah.
Like he's pushing the definition.
He broke that within himself.
Yeah.
And I think if you look even deeper, he allowed himself to fail.
That's what I told him. Like, the purpose is to fail. That was the whole purpose, to fail. And fail miserably. To the point where you don't even care after whether you fail or not. He gets happy when he fails. I'm pretty sure.
Because he's happy that he tried it.
Happy when he fails. You're happy when you fail?
Of course.
Like, you truly are?
I know.
This is automatic.
Yeah, because I know that I know that way or that method's not possible in that specific instance.
So you don't even have to. It's not like, oh yeah, I failed, and then you have to consciously think, okay, now I realize one way to not go.
Or even like,
it's
or
like
that way or that day, maybe that didn't work, but I'm gonna try it again. Maybe there's a method or different else. But I know, how I look at life is that life is a series of hypotheses that you can just get to trying to see what works. And when you form a hypothesis, the purpose is to prove it wrong. Is that not right?
Like, if you're a scientist at CERN, would you be happier if your theories, like, you bombarded something and your theories proved right, or would you be happier if it gave you something unexpected?
If it was right.
I mean, yeah, sure. Like, if it's right, sure, you'll be happy that you spent so many hours. But
in order to get it right, you need to be wrong many times or whatever. But like
I
being
guess,
wrong gets you closer to whatever
like,
thing right means.
put yourself in a position where you can be wrong and fail and learn. Right.
When you look towards the future, you feel good about the future, or do you feel
Pessimistic.
like you don't know what the hell's going on?
That, yeah. The latter.
Well, next time just take the elevator. Don't take the ladder.
Okay.
The elevator's faster. I guarantee you it will be a good future. What advice do you have for young people? Someone who is your age or younger in high school, middle school, or even your younger self about how to live a life of hard work, of knowledge, and a life that they can look back and say, that was me, and I'm proud of that.
I guess learn to think for yourself. Learn to be able to come up with creative ways to understand yourself, the world. That can be done by, like, expose yourself to philosophy books, math books. Try to read different forms of text that expose you to different ways of forming patterns, ways of thinking. And so that's often through philosophy, just like that. And try to latch into something that you're really curious and interested in and run with that.